Welcome to COD Zombies Hot Takes. This is going to be a brand new series where I end up giving my most unpopular opinions or hot takes about the Call of Duty Zombies franchise. This is not intended to piss you off, nor is it intended to start arguments in the comment section down below. This is just a fun and creative way for me to be able to express my unpopular opinions about a favorite game of mine, so please, do not go into the comments and try to end up thinking of something clever. This is just all in good fun, and I hope that we can end up finding at least a somewhat mutual agreement in this video. With all that being said though, I do hope you guys end up enjoying. The current Call of Duty monetization system is actually better than the old ones. The people that are saying that supply drops were better than the current monetization system in any game for that matter don't truly realize what they are actually saying. It is not a better system to have a complete RNG slot machine for your video games. I would much rather pay $20 for a character skin than to have it where I have to have it be pulled randomly from a in-game crate and have it be mixed in with a whole bunch of other useless filler crap like decals and emblems. When people ask for supply drops to come back, they are going off the presumption that the odds are in their favor. Those systems didn't exist to be in your favor. They existed to make money. And the only reason they are gone is because literally it was becoming a fucking felony and was considered child gambling. That is the only reason why that system got replaced. You could possibly spend infinite money and never have everything in a game that you want to be able to unlock all the material in. You could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and possibly never get the one thing that you want. You might not even want everything, you might just want a specific thing, but in an RNG system, a loot box specific system, you will never be guaranteed that item no matter how much money you're willing to spend. It is much better and more sustainable, and has been proven recently that more people are willing to play games that have free in-game content that affects the gameplay and have the cosmetics which don't affect the gameplay being the things that you charge for. Don't get me wrong, these current systems have their problems, but I would much rather have them than a complete RNG slot machine. Maps like Keener der Toten, Town, and the Giant are all overrated. Now when I say overrated, I am not saying remotely that these maps are bad. They're actually quite enjoyable and they are nice to play from time to time. But I do not agree with people that compare these maps to like Mob of the Dead and Shadows of Evil and Origins and say that they're like the best maps ever. The fact that there's some people out there like Chaos X Silencer that says that the best map in history is Keener der Toten is completely going off of the idea of nostalgia and nostalgia alone. The reason why these maps are successful is because the average player can understand them. They're typically sandboxes, they give you very decent to overpowered materials to work with such as certain wonder weapons and perks, and they are also really fun to play with friends. But the thing is though is that these maps are not sustainable for the long term. You will get bored very fast. Let me ask you this. When some of these games ended up first coming out, and these default maps were the only thing that you could play, did you only play these for hours and hours? And did you also play them by yourself? Because that will also impact whether or not I feel like you can play this long term. Back when Keener der Toten was the only map other than maybe 5 for Black Ops 1, and Town was the only map for Black Ops 2 other than like let's say Farm, Bus Depot, and Transit, did you actually play these maps as much as you say you did? Or did you rotate between all the different maps and even some of the other different Call of Duty games? Maybe even other games in general as a whole? I bet you did. There is no way you played Town and only Town up until the next map pack came out. I don't believe you. And even if you did, I would like to go off the assumption that you only played once every now and again, and even if you didn't play video games, you were doing just something else in your free time IRL to be able to fill in the time gap. I know that there's some people that truly love these maps, and I can understand why, but the main reason why they do well is, let's just be honest, they are very easy and straightforward maps. They are something that is meant for the casual audience, which Call of Duty has always thrived on. The complex games don't do nearly as well as the casual games, neither does the maps either. World at War is not as good of a game as you remember it is. World at War is a stepping stone for the Call of Duty series. It is the very beginning of the franchise, but it is not aged well. Unfortunately, because World at War is the very first game within the series, and it's also run on old hardware, this game is glitchy as hell. Here's a list of a few things that keep me from revisiting World at War. Number 1, gameplay glitches. There is some glitches in this game that never got fixed and makes so that way that the gameplay is annoying at times to end up experiencing. One of the most infamous and one of the most annoying is losing your Juggernog on Doris when you shoot yourself with the Wunderwaffe. The zombies in this game are either extremely slow or extremely fast. They also will not let you go when they grab you and basically render the knife useless because you can't stab zombies without getting sucked into a void. Most of the World at War guns, minus an exceptional few, are basically useless by round 15. The only guns that I can remember being consistently good is the PPSH, the ray gun, the Wunderwaffe, the MG42, the Browning, and then a couple of other pack-a-punch variants of some guns, but in terms of base guns, a lot of the base guns are just straight up bad. Quick Revive does not work solo in World at War, it is only the co-op variant, so you get one chance in World at War, and if you die, the game is over. Double Tap back in this game was still the 1.0 version, so it was completely useless to you and only just made you waste ammo. And unfortunately, because this was the very first game within the series, a lot of the maps are simplistic. Nocturne Toten, Verrucht, Shinonuma, and Doris are all very small maps with pretty much straightforward gameplay. And the thing is that as much as these maps are nice and fun to experience from time to time, they get repetitive extremely fast. And finally, Black Ops 4 should just not exist. Black Ops 4 is the worst of all the Treyarch Zombies experiences, specifically at least for their games. I know that they made things like Vanguard Zombies, but that's a Sledgehammer game technically, and I don't count that in my eyes. So specifically for Treyarch only, Black Ops 4 is the least fun game in the series. Black Ops 4 is a prime example of what happens when you don't take care of your game. The beginning half of Black Ops 4 was actually genuinely decent. But eventually what happened was that, for those of you guys that don't know, Sledgehammer, who was supposed to make Call of Duty 2020, couldn't make their game in time, and Treyarch had to step in because Activision told them to. So Black Ops 4 had basically its budget canceled and was pretty much only going off of filler old content from prior games. That is why you see things such as Nuketown and Call of the Dead being passed off as new experiences. I mean, like, bro, literally towards the end, we weren't even getting full-fledged cutscenes anymore. We were getting, like, still art images with text laying over it. Gone were all the fancy HD cutscenes that would have looked so good in Black Ops 4. Black Ops 4 could have very easily been a best of Black Ops game. Take all the elements from the prior games and make what would be the equivalent of a mini Master Chief collection for specifically just Treyarch Zombies. But unfortunately, the way it was executed felt like it was inauthentic, lazy, and just a reuse of assets just so that way they could just sell another game for another $60 year after year. Dead of the Night from Black Ops 4 is a criminally underrated map. And that is a sentence I never thought I would hear myself say because I don't really care for Black Ops 4. It's my least favorite Treyarch Zombies game. But, specifically speaking about the map and not the game, I like Dead of the Night quite a lot, actually. I really dig the Alistair's Annihilator. It's one of the best wonder weapons we have ever experienced in the series. I also like the spooky Halloween vampire werewolf concept. I know that some people don't like that about Dead of the Night, and that's actually one of the reasons they don't like it. And I can see why. It's definitely annoying and frustrating at times. But to be perfectly honest, since it was only ever a one-off, I actually think it's really nice, and it's kind of like a novelty map to me. Once you understand the concept and how to get set up on Dead of the Night, it's actually really straightforward. Now, is it time-consuming? Yes. Is it a giant hunt for parts? Yes. But the immersion and fighting the werewolf and having the vampires jump scare you and being able to get to a pretty decently high round with a sick-ass wonder weapon, I think that's worth it in the end. Widow's Wine is debatably the best perk in the entire zombie series. Now, I know there's going to be some people that are immediately going to be putting stats in the comment section down below saying that statistically this, statistically that, and yes, I know that statistically speaking, Juggernog is the superior perk of the entire series. I get that. But Widow's Wine, as a perk, is a very useful tool in a multitude of different scenarios. Here's just a few that I can immediately think of off the top of my head. Widow's Wine is one of the only few perks that can stop zombies in their tracks. The zombies cannot get to you when they are stunned by a Widow's Wine grenade. This allows you to be able to shoot through the zombies and hopefully be able to get a gap where you can run by them, or you can use something like, let's say, a gobble gum and then just nope out of there by just teleporting away or something. Widow's Wine gives you a stronger melee attack, so that way if, let's say, that the mystery box is screwing you and you don't have a good gun, you can stab the zombies to death and still be able to get by. And lastly, this is one of the only few perks that I can honestly think of where you can technically just disable its main feature without having to get rid of the perk altogether. If you don't want to keep the Widow's Wine grenades, you can just throw them out of your inventory. If you're worried about killing like your last zombie or something because let's say they accidentally hit you, you just get rid of the grenades. It's 100% your choice if you use the perk or not. I love Juggernog, don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic perk. But ever since, let's say, Black Ops 3, I would say, Juggernog has slowly but surely been getting less important and is not much of a crutch perk as it used to be. World at War, Black Ops 1, and Black Ops 2, absolutely yes, because we had the 2-hit down system. Without Jug, you were very likely to die. But now that you down in like 3 hits, sometimes even more without Juggernog, because like let's say in Cold War, for example, you got things like armor, it's not really as important to have Juggernog anymore. So Widow's Wine doesn't replace Juggernog, but I, in my personal opinion, think it's tied for the best perk ever. It's just very useful in niche situations and not just statistic-wise. Speaking of perks, I think that some of the most infamously bad perks throughout the series, such as Who's Who and Old Deadshot Daiquiri and Tombstone, have some of the best perk jingles, ironically, out of all the other perks in the game. Like, bro, just listen to some of these parts of the songs, like, these are bangers.
I was talking with you just the other day. I was hearing lots of things that I never thought I'd say. The one thing I said really blew my mind. Everyone told me that I don't need women to sing close to the can talk it through. Ain't as simple as we're gonna find. To err is human, to forgive is divine. Well, I'm not forgiven and the error ain't mine. He ain't quite human, at least not to my eyes. One sip of this and I'll give them the shock of their lives. Yeah, we got the guns and we got the bombs. In Deadshot heaven we pop skulls for fun. Zero win, baby, 0 on that spot. The hot spot, baby, give it all.
And of course we can't forget about the most memeable song in the zombies community.
Rest in pieces, time for the count. No revival, you're bleeding out.
And then finally, sometimes custom maps for Black Ops 3 and World at War are genuinely better maps than some of the official Treyarch ones. I guarantee you at least 1 or 2 maps immediately flash into your mind as soon as I said that statement. There are just some bad maps that Treyarch has made before in the past that, like, don't justify their existence. There are some maps I have played before in the past that are creative as hell, and there are some developers that are also talented as hell. There are some maps that genuinely are so good, I wish that Activision or Treyarch hired these guys to make actual maps for the series. They're that good. I've said this before, and I will say it again. One of the best things a developer can do for their game is allow the community to make content for it. Regardless if the content is good, regardless if the content is serious, if the fans can make their own content, it helps keep the game alive. It's very hard as a fan to justify playing a certain game when you have to go sometimes weeks or months without good content. Not just content, but good content. Something that will make you want to genuinely consider breaking your commitments because it's just that good of a game. Take a look at this. Black Ops 3 is in the top 10 best-selling games on Steam as of 2023. That is insane. Black Ops 3 came out in 2015, almost 10 years ago already, and it's super close to being also in the top 5 best-selling games on Steam. Activision, Treyarch, I have to tell you something. As much as this is going to hurt your ego, sometimes people just make better content than you do. And it would be the best decision ever if you bite the bullet and bring back mods again for another one of your future games, because allowing the community to be able to make whatever content they want is a good thing, not a bad thing. You're not even charging for DLC anymore, so it's not like you're going to be missing out on anything. Now, even though a majority of the mods are probably going to be shit posts and memes, who cares? Who cares if we decide to end up playing something stupid as long as we're having fun? Gameplay is more important to Call of Duty Zombies' success than the Easter eggs and the storyline is. Now, I promise you, I am not saying that the Call of Duty Zombies storyline is bad by any stretch of the imagination. Despite it being complicated, I still do think that the COD Zombies storyline is important to this franchise. However, with that being said, I truly believe that a great gameplay loop with addictive mechanics and something that you can play with your buddies is more enjoyable and sustainable long term than any storyline or Easter egg could in the long run. I believe that the sweet spot for Easter eggs is from the Black Ops 2 and the Black Ops 3 era. Because with Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3, those were as complicated as you could get without solely relying on a YouTube video to look up for every single step. If the Easter egg coordinates with the existing gameplay that a player was going to do anyways, that's the best types of Easter eggs. That's the Easter eggs that you would get on like Mob the Dead and Origins, for example, where you're already sort of starting the Easter egg when you go on to upgrade the staves and go to the Pack-a-Punch. Here is a way to think about it, is that if you look at the history of Call of Duty games and their success, the least popular games are the convoluted ones. The more popular games are the casual ones. And that is why, and I can give an example of two games literally back-to-back with different values, that is why Black Ops 4 didn't do well and Cold War did, is because Black Ops 4 was as complicated could get, and Cold War was a reset back to the beginning of starting from square one, trying to just make a good gameplay loop and keeping players entertained. Easter eggs in Call of Duty will always serve their purpose, but they are not the only thing that keeps zombies alive and gives it meaning. Sometimes having a game where it's just fun to play with your buddies for only a year and going back occasionally for nostalgia is okay, and that can be good enough. This might just be me, but I personally think that Outbreak is not actually as bad as people say it is. If it's the only thing in Call of Duty Zombies, then yes, that's a problem. That's where we ended up getting the situation with Vanguard, because it had no round-based zombies, except for literally just a Shi No Numa remake. And that's the same issue that I think is going to once again happen in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. But when Outbreak is just a secondary mode just for novelty's sake, I think it's a welcomed addition. I liked when they tried to have new game modes in Black Ops 2, for example, with Turned and Grief. Sure, they were not the best game modes, and most of us just all went back to round-based, but the idea of being able to have another game mode was fun to me. I'm not really necessarily sure what exactly would be the best substitute for a secondary mode in terms of zombies that's not round-based, but I would definitely love them to keep trying. Maybe perhaps we could get smaller game modes so that way it doesn't take away from round-based, and we could have party game modes such as like COD Zombies gun game being made official or something. So if Treyarch brings this back for Call of Duty 2024, their next official game, I wouldn't mind, but I think that the best way that they could handle that is having it be at launch and having it addition to the round-based default map that also comes at launch, because if you're just going to use this to fill up a DLC slot, people are going to get irritated again. Now, I know this is definitely a hot take because I don't see nearly as many people advocating for this as much as I would, but I would love for Treyarch or Activision to make public matches actually obtainable and feasible again. I grew up at the very beginning of the big internet boom era. I was a very late 90s kid, but predominantly grew up in the early 2000s, so I grew up with things such as playing split-screen games on my Xbox 360 and hosting LAN parties. And the way I was able to meet all my old Xbox buddies back in the day when we were kids was by playing in public matches, and I just feel like you just can't do that anymore. I would love to be able to go into Call of Duty Zombies and be able to queue for a public lobby, not even necessarily just to get a high round, but just I would love to meet new people and just record some funny moments, because that's the stuff I grew up with and I would love to experience that again. Nowadays, most people just use Discord, and also people don't even really talk in game chat, they are pretty much at least in an Xbox party or a PlayStation party. I understand that and I know why they do that, but the way I look at it is that you can't really end up making any online friends unless you end up playing in a public space. So what you're doing is you're kind of handicapping your social circle, and it's not necessarily anybody's fault either. It's just that Activision Treyarch doesn't make it easy for you to meet people in public matches on their games anymore. I guarantee you, if I were to go into a public match of any Call of Duty that wasn't the most recent one, is going to be hacked into oblivion and then have to worry about my hardware, and I don't want to do that. That's literally why I'm not even doing it for the background gameplay. I'm instead just playing Black Ops 4 with some bots. Treyarch, Activision, I know you probably will never end up getting around to this just because it's just not worth your time. I understand that. But if you could just find it in the kindness of your heart, just for the 1 in a billion chance that you watch this video and you just want to like somehow make the game seem more enticing to a niche like set of people, if you really want to capitalize on that nostalgia like I know you like to, can you make it where we can play public matches safely? Because unfortunately we just can't right now, and it basically makes it that way your games are not sustainable long term because the only people you can play with is the people that you already know. Speaking of nostalgia, as we transition to my final hot take here, you also have to end up being very careful with it, Activision. You must be very, very careful with it, because what I'm going to mention here for my last point is please don't use nostalgia as a crutch. My dear viewer, the one watching this video, let me ask you a question, and let me ask you, does this ring true to you? When it comes to the Call of Duty games, have you ever had it where when you experience a new game and it just isn't your cup of tea, isn't the first thing that you do is to go back to basics and go with what's familiar to you, but then as soon as you end up doing, it feels boring because you've already seen it before and then you're immediately asking for something new again? This is a gameplay loop that we suffer on a regular yearly basis for the Call of Duty series. It's pretty much a very valid point when developers say we don't know what we want. We end up asking for something new, but when the new is uncomfortable, and it's not just a great educational guess on the developer's part, we ask to go back to basics. But then when we go too much back to basics, we end up getting bored. So it's this back and forth between developer and fan about how much can you end up making something innovative to end up making people feel like they're experiencing some new and fun content that they can later have as memories and think nostalgically back upon, but also at the same time still have something familiar enough and not overwhelming so that way you can still be able to experience the game in a way that doesn't make you just want to immediately drop it and move on. I love my classic games as much as the next guy, but when they are used as a crutch, it basically kills the game for me because I would rather just go back and play that old content in the original format anyways. I mean, like, how many times have we had Nocturne Toten be remastered in some sort of capacity for Call of Duty Zombies? It's basically like Shipment or Nuketown for multiplayer. It was originally in World at War, it was remade for Black Ops 1, it's in transit in Black Ops 2, it's remade for Chronicles in Black Ops 3, I don't think it's in Black Ops 4, so we'll skip that, and then it's basically used for a good majority of its assets on D Machine in Cold War. So basically every game besides one has been remastered or reused in some sort of capacity. When nostalgia is handled like Black Ops 3's Zombies Chronicles, and it's in addition to the already existing brand new content, that's when you end up having a good way of handling nostalgia in DLC. When you have it where you handle nostalgia in the sense that you try to treat it like Black Ops 4, where literally half of your maps, 4 of your 8 maps, are a remake in some capacity, that's when you don't handle it well. Black Ops 4 has a remake of Mob of the Dead in Blood, it has a remake of 5 via Classified, it has a remake of Nuketown in the form of Alpha Omega, and finally it has a remake of Call of the Dead with the last DLC of Tagged or Toten. Here's a way to think about it that sounds insane, but the last original map for the Primus crew was Garad Krovi. Jesus Christ. We as a community talk about how that we don't want to repay money for the same stuff that we had before years ago anyways, but we end up doing it anyway, so it's like, you know, it's just easy for developers to keep doing the same shit over and over again because we pay for it. So as a message here to Treyarch and Activision, please don't use nostalgia as a crutch. And to my fellow COD Zombies fans, I encourage you to give any new thing that Treyarch creates a valid chance, because the very thing that you're asking to be cancelled very well might end up being your favorite thing when you look back on it. Is it just me, or does anybody miss using bad guns sometimes in Call of Duty Zombies? Not all the time, but just occasionally just for shits and giggles. Guns like the ballistic knife, war machine, and the SMR all come to mind when I think of stereotypically bad guns in the COD Zombie series. And the funny thing is that as much as those guns were annoying to get out of the mystery box, it's what made the mystery box the mystery box. Think about it like this. When you go to the mystery box, it's a gamble. You're trying to end up spending 950 points to get a possibly good gun. You're trying to get your ray guns. You're trying to get your wonder weapons. But occasionally, just because of your luck, you may or may not get something like a war machine or a SMR. But because the mystery box would not always give you a good gun, you had to improvise, you had to clutch, you had to end up thinking of different strategies to get out of a situation other than just popping something that's extremely overpowered like how we have in most games. Now, I understand that this system probably wouldn't work anymore because of the fact that we have camo grinding and people would think it's insufferable to try to get through a gun when they're trying to unlock something like dark matter on it when it's basically useless. But a way around this problem is just make it where if you pack-a-punch it, it just makes the gun actually usable. I just would like to have it where we have like, not a lot, but maybe like 1 or 2 just really bad guns until they are pack-a-punched at least. My main reason for this? It's just funny. Maybe it's just me totally relying on nostalgia from back when I used to play with my buddies and I had a whole bunch of free time on my hands and we would just goof around and just make memes and just talk and just try to end up having fun with whatever it was that we had. But I do miss a little bit of the RNG in zombies because now that we have everything, you kind of have to create your own fun, and I do wish that the game kind of helped us out with making our own fun by not always giving us everything when we want it. Hold back enough that we have to be able to end up thinking of stuff on the spot and use more of our creativity like when we were younger, because when you mix in a little bit of BS with your games, it can end up working on your favor and be considered fun. Things like Mario Kart are fun for a reason because as much as it is nice to win, it's also really funny when you end up hitting your friend with a blue shell. Who here misses Gobblegums from Black Ops 3? And I specifically mean the Gobblegums. Not the elixirs from Black Ops 4, but specifically the Gobblegums. I liked this gameplay element of Black Ops 3 so much, and I was disappointed with the elixir system in Black Ops 4, and the fact that they didn't bring back any version of this into Cold War, because Cold War, for how easy it is, you think that this game would have a field day with a mechanic like this. But they don't have it. We instead just end up having like a buildable bench where you can just buy the items flat outright, and that's just boring to me. I enjoyed the little bit of randomness with trying to get a Gobblegum and not having it always be the one I liked. Kind of like I was talking about in the last hot take, how I said that it was kind of fun to get bad mystery box guns. Because when you just get everything given to you like how you do in Cold War, where it's just like, oh yeah, if I want to I can buy literally a chopper gunner just because I want to. It was nice in Black Ops 3 where you had another RNG, but a legit fair though RNG system that allowed a gameplay layer for you to end up upgrading your character. You would go to the mystery box when you wanted a random gun, you would look around the map for your perks, and then when you finally wanted to end up starting to go for high rounds, just before it, you would end up getting your favorite Gobblegums. I don't know how they would necessarily be able to bring this back because the Gobblegums were tied to a monetization system that has gotten outdated quite fast. So I would love to be able to see how they would try to rebrand this and repackage it where it could still work, but avoid all the problems that came with it in Black Ops 3. I think that they should finish the Chaos story. I don't think that the operator system is working. I think that the operators are boring in Cold War, and I miss having a crew in Call of Duty Zombies. I love the idea of trying to get to know our characters, and now because we're just using basic operators, it feels hollow. Plus also it's confusing because you can do things such as playing as characters that are already in the map, and you can be like, for example, playing as Samantha Maxis and saving Samantha Maxis in Cold War, which doesn't make any sense. Would you believe me if I told you that the only Call of Duty Zombies crew that had their story fully completed is the main four, Takio, Nikolai, Dempsey, and Richthofen, and that's it? And their story even barely almost didn't get finished either in Black Ops 4 because of the fact that it had its budget canceled when they were trying to make Cold War. So Treyarch has a very bad habit and track record of not finishing their stories. Now I will say this, is that some crews don't necessarily need more maps. There is a lot of unknowns, but I don't necessarily think that it would be too bad if we never got another map featuring the Mob of the Dead crew, the Shadows of Evil crew, or the Call of the Dead crew. But the Chaos story, the Chaos crew specifically, they got completely shafted in Black Ops 4 and had a massive cliffhanger in Ancient Evil. Just in case you guys didn't know this, I want to point this out here in the video, is that Black Ops 4 was intending to have a part 2 of the Chaos story. We would have the premise story finish in the first year of Black Ops 4, and then the second year of Black Ops 4, the Chaos story would finish. Black Ops 4 was intended to end up being treated like how Black Ops 3 was, where it would have an additional few years of DLC and support from Treyarch, but because of the negative reception the game got, these plans were cancelled. I think Treyarch misunderstood the negative feedback they were getting. The negative feedback was not necessarily because the Chaos story was that bad, it's just that the map suffered from the game it was tied to. With us getting free DLC maps now, they should finish the Chaos Story crew and continue from where they left off in the cliffhanger of Ancient Evil. They deserve to have their story finished. And finally, can we stop getting so many safe or cookie cutter maps and get some fun and just crazy locations for our zombies maps again? One of my biggest pet peeves is when people want their games to be air quote realistic. I don't want my games to be realistic. I want my games to be fun. I play them to escape reality. I want maps that take place at locations such as Alcatraz, or a western town underneath of the ground, or perhaps an eye-striking medieval castle, or maybe even a horrific and gross-looking swamp. I'm just tired of playing on maps that are just like, facility, facility, facility.
Recon the site, eliminate
Facility. It's just like, god damn it, these maps are so boring in terms of their location. They're not bad maps. I mean, we've actually had some really cool settings for maps, and the maps are really, really complicated and frustrating, but I just wish they were more creative with where they decide to send us. Like, why have we not gotten Paris, or Atlantis, or Egypt as maps after all of this time? Fans have been begging for those concepts, and still they have not shown up yet. So Treyarch, I know that I'm being very harsh in this video, but for the 1 in a billion chance you were watching it, please give us more unique locations, please. I can't stand the idea of being in another facility. I think that operators should not be a feature within the next Call of Duty game. I believe we should go back to the old crew system that we used to have from World at War all the way to Black Ops 4. I think that they're better. I personally do not like the operator system because it makes the storyline feel bland. In fact, I think it's one of the main reasons why Cold War's story suffered is because we were just playing as just random people. I feel like that we should have a character set where we end up having lore and storyline and voice line elements so that way we can feel reeled into the map and end up feeling attached to those characters. I feel no sort of attachment to my operator. Now, knowing Activision's probably going to take years on end of constant nagging and bitching for them to actually change anything, so this is what I'm going to suggest. I'm going to suggest to you, Activision and Treyarch, for your next Call of Duty Zombies game, you should finally add in the system that you were going to do with Black Ops 3 Zombies, where you have a set crew and they have storyline implications, but you can customize them nonetheless. This was a cut feature that was originally going to be in Black Ops 3 for those that were not aware, but they decided to pull back on it last minute. I think that since operators and custom skins are now a norm for a lot of people, and especially for the developers because they rely on a lot of it for money, this should be an idea going forward. Have the best of both worlds. You don't necessarily need to hire a celebrity cast again and have to give them a whole bunch of money so that way you can have a full-fledged crew like you've had before in the past. And I doubt that players are going to worry about them being boring or not worth listening to because the operators are already that way and we've just kind of just tuned it out as white noise. I mean, wouldn't you guys rather, in your opinion, have Richtofen wearing all these cool things, or Dempsey wearing all these cool things, or Nikolai or Takio or any of your other favorite characters from years past? Wouldn't you want them to all wear these cool and awesome looking outfits? I would like to believe a lot of you would. I think it'd be a lot more fun to have Richtofen and Dempsey running around wearing cool outfits than would be just for some random lady or some random guy that we have no emotional attachment to. I mean, like, who remembers the operators by name from Cold War? Without any of them being flashed on screen, that is. Like, does anybody remember their names at all? Personally, one of the things I don't like about Cold War and just modern Call of Duty in general is the gunsmith. I think that the gunsmith is overwhelming even for the most veteran of players. Why in God's name is there literally 10 or 10 plus reticles and suppressors and quick draw grips that you can choose from? It becomes overwhelming to pick what is the best possible attachment for your gun when they're all micro differences with each other. There's like a reticle sight that will give you slight less recoil or slight less aim down sight speed or whatever the hell, and it's just impossible to keep track of all the negatives and the pluses. So why would I bother doing this and trialing and error it when I could just Google a video and then pull up the automatic best guide that pops up at the #1 search? Because that's what everybody does. This is wasted assets, Treyarch. This is wasted resources. You do not need to make 10 or 30 or 50 plus attachments for a whole catalog and slew of guns when nobody uses that many. We probably use like the go-to 5 or 10 attachments and then never look at it again because we don't care. We do not care. This is more of a multiplayer feature anyways that got introduced into zombies later on. So like, why did it become so complicated? Can we go back to the Black Ops 3 system? I mean, hell, even the game before Black Ops 4 had a better and more easy to understand gunsmith than this. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes one reticle is good enough. Maybe 2. Sometimes 1 or 2 quick draw grips is good enough. Maybe 3 if you're really wanting to push it, but usually that's for like cosmetic things when you had like the customizable attachments in Black Ops 3 where you could have different versions from the black market, but that's not even a thing anymore. So really, we only need like 1 or 2 of every attachment in the game for all guns, so that way a player could be like, okay, do I want grip 1 or grip 2? Pretty straightforward. So Call of Duty has had the same formula for several years. It's always just been round-based survival up until recently with Cold War, where they started to have the Outbreak modes. But I remember back in Black Ops 2 when they used to have other game modes they were willing to give a chance, like Grief and Turned. I think we should have some sort of version of Grief and Turned come back in the next Call of Duty Zombies game. Now, not the originals, though, because the originals were flawed and there was a reason why that system got retired. But I do believe we should get at least another crack at it within the next Zombies game. Or at least there should be some sort of custom game elements where not necessarily you queue for a public match and have a wasted game mode, but you rather can just enable it and play specifically with your friends. Because having alternate game modes is good, it's healthy for the game, and even if they're not played as much, it gives some novelty in your play sessions. I would love to just dick around and play around with my friends. You could have competition in zombies without it being toxic. I still to this day am advocating for some sort of zombies gun game where we can play against random people or with our friends and try to see who gets the last gun and then they win or something like that. Or why not you bring back the old meat mode that you were going to also have within Black Ops 2 where you try to throw it on the other side of a barrier and get the zombies to chase it so it attacks the players on that side. You know what I mean? Now, this last request is not as serious as the prior 3, but it's still a cool idea nonetheless. I think we should go back to the old marketing model for Call of Duty, where we would upload a YouTube video where the devs would talk to us and showcase everything from that DLC pack. Or in this case, what for today's standards would be the equivalent of doing this, but for the seasonal roadmap. They should end up doing stuff like this again. They should have the face of the team that's making the thing we're buying or playing talk to us and explain why we should play it. We need the next Jimmy Zielinski, the next Jason Blundell, the person that we can associate with Call of Duty Zombies, the face of this game mode. There was just something wholesome about these older style trailer videos where we would end up seeing the devs being passionate about their projects live in front of us. Players immensely respect this type of level of transparency. Now, yes, I do understand, truly I do understand, that there is going to be, unfortunately, some people that will give the face of whoever they assign a whole bunch of shit. It always happens. It happens no matter what. There's just people that don't give a shit and they will say whatever comes to mind on the internet. And I'm sorry that that happens. But Treyarch, please end up considering doing this type of style of format again, because I promise you, if the game that you make is a good game and ends up turning out well, like Black Ops 2, this will be worth it because then they will give you the credit that you deserve. They will remember your face. There's a reason why games like Lethal Company and Among Us and Fall Guys from a couple of years ago were ending up being more popular than you, is because those games were passion projects. Those games were just fun despite how small and simplistic they were. It didn't feel like a chore or it didn't feel like a corporate cash grab for the game. It just felt like a fun game that you want to play with friends. That's what made Call of Duty work back in the past, and now it's time to bring that back again. In my opinion, I believe that George Romero is not as annoying of a boss as people say that he is within Call of the Dead. I believe in terms of all the bosses that are within Black Ops 1 zombies, George is honestly the best other than the Hellhounds, because I get more annoyed going up against the Moon Astronaut, the Screecher Zombie, and the Napalm Zombie in Shangri-La, and especially the Ascension Monkeys. I think that honestly, those bosses are more annoying and more frustrating than George ever was. The Pentagon Thief steals your guns, and you can't end up stopping him from doing it, you just have to hope you can chase him before he escapes. The Ascension Monkeys, they will steal your perks, and there's no way you can guard everything. The Shangri-La Screecher Zombie blinds you, the Napalm Zombie is basically guaranteed to blow up at least a couple of times and most likely be the reason you die in Shang. And then the Moon Astronaut also steals your perks, and because it's such a claustrophobic map with doorways where it's impossible to predict what's behind on the other side, you're more likely than not going to lose one of your first perks, which is most likely either speed or jug. George Romero is one of the only few bosses that does not steal shit from you and will leave you alone if you leave him alone. The only way that you can die from George is if you are pinned in a weird corner because you can't necessarily shoot through him, or if you end up getting killed by the zombies that he sicks on you because he can technically give them buffs. But if you decide to end up training George and running around the lighthouse, anytime he gets pissed at you, all you gotta do is just lure him into the ice water, and then he's gonna calm down. It's very easy to end up upsetting George, but it's also just as easy to make sure that he will not attack you and calm down. George Romero, at least for Black Ops 1 zombies, is one of the better bosses because he is only going to kill you if you kill him. I know that he has 250,000 health per player in the lobby, so if you have a 4-man lobby, he's got 1,000,000 health. It is some of the most absurd amount of health we've ever seen within a boss. But other than the few little quirks and oddball qualities about him, George is not the worst boss we have ever seen. He is definitely annoying, but honest to God, I don't think that he's that annoying. I personally would like to see the old-style Pack-a-Punch come back to Call of Duty Zombies. Don't get me wrong, I do love the freedom with a lot of the features that were implemented within Cold War, including its Pack-a-Punch system. Here's the thing though, is that I feel like one of the things that is good in healthy doses is RNG, and I know a lot of people are going to hate that word because they end up thinking of bad RNG with getting like bad luck, but think about it this way. One of the things that made Call of Duty Zombies successful was its RNG gameplay loop. For example, one of the most iconic RNG mechanics in the entirety of COD Zombies is the Mystery Box. And the Mystery Box has been around ever since World at War. It's that much of a staple, and it's completely a random feature. You never know what you're going to get out of the Mystery Box. You could get one of the best guns ever, like a Wonder Weapon, or you can get one of the most stinking dog shit ever guns, like the War Machine or the SMR. And for those I have not convinced you yet about why I think that you should also think this way, think about it this way. In Cold War Zombies, to fully upgrade your gun to tier level 3, it cost you $30,000. Let me say that again. $30,000 to fully upgrade your gun in Cold War Zombies. That is absurd. Any of the other Call of Duty Zombies games, when it was just $5,000, and maybe an additional $2,500 just to get one alternate ammo type, was completely reasonable in my opinion. But $30,000, especially where the point system is where you have to kill the zombies, it takes a lot of rounds to get that amount of money, and if you're buying other things on the side, like guns or perks or whatever have you, this takes forever. It basically takes all game just to get one gun. One gun. Tier 3 Pack-a-Punch. That's not even counting if you wanted to get at least a second gun. If you want 2 guns to be tier level 3, that's $60,000. Like, my god, man. Like, we think that the economy in real life is crazy. The Call of Duty Zombies economy is not even safe either. I love Cold War, I really do, but one of the things I do miss about old Call of Duty Zombies is just at least a little bit of RNG, and I just don't want to break my Call of Duty Zombies bank account every single time I want to end up upgrading my guns. In my opinion, I think that the Lightning Staff on Origins is the most fun to use. There's a difference between fun to use and most effective to use, because I know that some people are going to point out that the Ice Staff, when it is upgraded, is the best staff for high rounding. Which for that I will not argue with you. I am more rather instead talking about the fun aspect rather than the high round aspect. Now, if high rounds are what's fun to you, then I see your point. But for me personally, I always go for the lightning staff whenever I play on Origins. It's just my favorite staff to use. I like every single staff in Origins. I love them all, upgraded or non-upgraded. But the thing is, with the lightning staff in particular, for my playstyle, this is my favorite staff to use. I like the fact that all you gotta do is just parkour while on the tank and go around the map and get all the pieces. Plus also its upgrade process, in my opinion, it's the most fun to go through in comparison to the ice, wind, or fire staff. I believe that the ice staff is not good until you upgrade it. I believe that the wind staff has way too little ammo, and from my experience, whenever I use the fire staff, it leads to my game crashing, or rather just the person whoever uses that specific staff disconnecting out of the game in the later rounds. The lightning staff, in my opinion, is a jack-of-all-trades staff. There's nothing necessarily bad with it, and that's okay for me, and therefore that's one of the reasons why it's just my favorite staff. And the way I look at it is that now that Black Ops 3 has Origins, if I really wanted to go for a high round, I'm just going to use the Gobblegums, because why not? And finally, I believe that the Primus crew should just have their story end with Revelations. I know that this would be a massive letdown and a big dick tease because of all the things that could have been, but that was just the entirety of Black Ops 4, what could have been. They wasted all their assets and all their time just to make a sequel that everybody forgot. Black Ops 4 did have some key moments that I know a lot of fans have loved over the years, like for example the Blood of the Dead ending. That is a pretty gut-wrenching ending, and it is a masterpiece and an art in its own right, but I don't think that it's enough to justify Black Ops 4's existence for the occasional good piece of content that they made. Black Ops 4 was more disappointing than it was exciting, in my humble opinion. I believe that if you're going to end up making a piece of media, you shouldn't wait for it to fail and start dying before you decide to end it. With Black Ops 4 Zombies not having a single voice line from Dr. Monty, not having a single original map for the Primus crew, and even after everything, with Black Ops 4 never getting the Great War map, is the biggest disappointment of all, man. They could have very easily ended up making the Great War map, but because of how bad Black Ops 4's launch was, they decided to invest their time into Cold War. And in my humble opinion, they either should have just went through it and took the loss anyways, or what they honestly should have done is that they were really not that confident in the development of Black Ops 4 in the first place, and they were just making it just to make the Great War. They should have just made another DLC for Black Ops 3, and everybody would have been completely content. Call of Duty Zombies games that are set during World War II are not automatically bad games. In my humble opinion, I feel like that when Call of Duty Zombies is set during World War II, it can actually be quite fun. Just look at the success of Call of Duty World at War. The origins of Zombies itself came from a World War II game. I honestly think that it's a big overreaction when some Call of Duty games are set in World War II. So many people freak out and hate on it, just like how that people used to hate on the futuristic games when we had Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, and Infinite Warfare. To hate on a game just for its genre is honestly quite ridiculous. If you don't want the game, just simply do not buy it. It baffles me when people will buy a game just to simply hate on it. Follow a game just to simply hate it. If you really do not like the green and brown and black color scheme of a game so much, then why do you subject yourself to that type of torment? I literally do not understand why you do this to yourself. Hating on the game for being in World War II is not going to automatically make the devs drop everything that they're doing and change the genre all of a sudden. And plus also, the closest thing we ever got to that with the game changing genre or like specific elements of the genre halfway through was Vanguard when they were adding in laser guns to the multiplayer of Vanguard, but then people are saying it's not historically accurate anymore, so you really honestly can't win. I don't care if my game is historically accurate, but I do understand those frustrations. This is the way I look at it. I end up looking at the gameplay of the game alone. I do not look at what genre it is in. If I don't like the genre, I just don't buy the game. It's plain and simple. There are some Call of Duty games within recent memory that I have not bought. I do not own Modern Warfare 3. I do not like its zombies. And same thing with Vanguard. Just because Vanguard is in World War II and I don't have a problem with World War II games doesn't mean I'm going to buy them. I just didn't like the gameplay mechanics of Vanguard. I prefer the gameplay mechanics of the older Call of Duty Zombies games, such as World at War through Black Ops 3. Maybe it's just the fact that one of the things about Call of Duty Zombies that I miss, that I've been advocating for a long time to come back, is the horror aspect. The gritty aspect of World at War, and even a little bit into Black Ops 1 and 2, the spooky elements of those games was what made it fun to me. I'm a type of guy that will go back sometimes to the older Call of Duty Zombies games just to be scared. I literally have Not Durin Toten in the background because this is one of my favorite maps for how just creepy and disturbing it is. I find it more fun and enjoyable for Call of Duty Zombies when it genuinely strikes a little bit of fear into me. I am not intimidated by the modern zombies whatsoever, but even in my 20s, if I go back to World at War, this game does give me a little bit of an eerie feeling that makes me, like, decently uncomfortable, I would say. And see, here's the thing, is that you can't get this grittiness as easy once you make the game modernized. The reason why the World at War Zombies was creepy is because it was based off of World War II, one of the most tragic and disturbing events in our entire history. I don't understand how that people can say that World War II games are bad when the precedent, the base for the game mode that we all love, comes from a World War II game. The Ultimates crew got their start in World at War. We got some of the most fan-favorite gameplay staples that originated in World at War and been carried on ever since, such as drops, the origins of Sam as a character, Richtofen and Maxis, the mystery box, Perca-Colas, you name it. Everything originated specifically from World at War. When you take a map like Not Durin Toten and put in a game like Black Ops 3, the elements of what made that map scary are just gone. The soul is just disappeared from the remakes. Some past games are going to be a Vanguard, yes, but some are also going to be like a World at War. Just like how the futuristic games, some of them will be like Black Ops 3, and not every one of them is going to be an Infinite Warfare. You just have to end up giving the game a chance. And as I conclude my first hot take here, think about this last final point. Modern Warfare 3 Zombies is in a modern game, and yet it's considered one of the worst zombies we have ever had, and yet I still see people trying to defend Modern Warfare 3, even though literally it's barely any different than Vanguard. Both are incomplete, non-round-based zombies that were just a game mode for the sake of being there. And yet, just because one takes place in a different year, one gets more hated. It's really ridiculous in my opinion. It's honestly ridiculous. The Ray K from Firebase Z is the best version of the ray gun we have ever had. This gun looks cool, it sounds cool, it kicks a whole bunch of ass, and it's one of the best wonder weapons in my humble opinion. Thinking about and looking back on the other ray guns we have had throughout history, they just haven't aged as well in my opinion. The original ray gun was really honestly bad for a long time until they brought it back and buffed it in Cold War. The Ray Gun Mark II is probably the second best because I think it's just like one of the statistically strongest and it also does look cool. And then the Ray Gun Mark III, it was okay. It was kind of novel because, well, it was another ray gun. We had the trilogy of ray guns at that time. But the Ray Gun Mark III felt clunky for me because I didn't like how that it was dual wield. And plus also it felt more like a Apothecon servant than it did a ray gun because I was just shooting the black hole combos all the time with that one. Imagine the Ray K if Double Tap was in Cold War. Double Tap hasn't been in COD since Black Ops 3. It has been a very, very long time. Now the Ray K does have the benefit of the fact that it is in Cold War, which is one of the easier COD games we had, where you can have Ring of Fire, all the perks, the game is just easier because you can buy ammo for it all the time, and quite frankly, I do believe that that's true. I feel like if you were to put the Ray K in the older CODs that were a lot harder to survive in, it wouldn't be as good of a wonder weapon. But that's besides the point. The point is that the wonder weapon is just fun for the game it's in. I like the Ray K, and I think it's one of the best wonder weapons we have ever had. Tombstone in Cold War is a genuinely good perk. I'm just 100% serious. It is a genuinely good perk. Tombstone and Black Ops 2 sucked. I'll say that flat out right, is that I will agree with you all. That Black Ops 2's Tombstone, that was bad. But Cold War's Tombstone, I genuinely like this perk. Tombstone in Cold War functions like the way that Who's Who was supposed to function in Black Ops 2, because Who's Who in Black Ops 2 is also a really, really bad perk. But they made it so that when they put the two together for Cold War, they created a version that I know that's what they intended for Black Ops 2. I even liked Tombstone before I maxed it out. I maxed it out when I was getting the background footage for this gameplay. I was on tier 4 the entire time and I still liked Tombstone. The upgraded version of Tombstone to level 5, look at these descriptions. These sound incredible. Now, I know that you can buy a self-revive, and that when you end up getting Tombstone, you're not going to keep your perks, and you can't necessarily keep all your money. It's really only meant to end up keeping things like your guns. But, I mean, whatever helps, man. I mean, personally, I like the little bit of help that Tombstone gives me, and sure, it might not necessarily be a bargain of a perk, but I'm glad that the perk is just not entirely useless like it was back in Black Ops 2. Whenever I play Cold War, I try to go for all the perks anyway, so why not get Tombstone? And then lastly, can we end up getting some cool quests back in COD Zombies rather than just having everything be just purchasable like how we have in Cold War? I love Cold War, I really do, but one of my biggest gripes with it is just the fact that it's boringly easy sometimes. When I think of maps with good quests, two of them that immediately come to my mind is Shadows of Evil and Mob of the Dead. I absolutely adored the flow of both of those maps, especially Mob of the Dead. Killing all the zombies near the Hellhound heads and then getting the Hell's Retriever is a much more fun and enjoyable gameplay loop in comparison to Cold War, where you just find tomahawks lying on the floor. That is not exciting at all. And the Mob of the Dead Pack-a-Punch system is probably my favorite Pack-a-Punch system ever. I love going around the entire map and getting all the plane parts, and it's just so much fun trying to end up taking off and going all the way over to the Golden Gate Bridge. One of the things that disappointed me the most about Blood of the Dead is when they changed the Pack-a-Punch system. They went from gathering a whole bunch of plane parts around the entire map to go crash into the Golden Gate Bridge, to just getting a ride shield and having two ghosts spawn it in, which is just boring. Nobody minds a challenging event in a game as long as it's fun, and the plane steps on Mob of the Dead is peak example of that. I would like to believe there's gotta be somewhere in between the extremes of Black Ops 4 and the extremes of Black Ops Cold War, because those games are complete contrasts of each other, and I want to just get another game that's like Black Ops 2 or 3, where the gameplay is not inherently difficult, other than just maybe occasionally just getting set up and a little bit of your skill level, and that's basically it. So I am surprised that it did take us 8 episodes to finally bring the subject up, but yes, it is finally time to talk about the M14 versus the Olympia. For some reason, this ended up becoming some sort of gang meme back a few years ago, which I don't know why, but I still find it funny, so I thought that, hey, why not give my opinion about this topic? So, in my personal opinion, I think that the M14 is clearly the better gun of the two. I have always used the M14. The M14 has more ammo, it has more damage. It personally is my favorite gun to use just because of the way it feels. It has the ability to end up killing more zombies before you have to reload, whereas the Olympia just pretty much sucks at all those things I just listed. That gun does not have any redeeming features whatsoever. There's nothing more infuriating than having to reload literally every 2 seconds. It's a double-barrel shotgun, so quite literally, once you end up shooting one shot, you only get one more before you have to reload. And you better make sure that it counts, because I swear to God, this gun gives nothing but hit markers. Everyone says the redeeming quality of this over the M14 is the damage, but it is not there. I don't know what the hell people are talking about. It is already round 5, and I am struggling to kill anything with the Olympia. I had to switch back to the M14 just so that way I wouldn't die here. Literally getting a headshot with the Olympia can get me a hit marker and have a headless zombie chasing after me. See that? Look at that. It's ridiculous. I had to shoot him again and then he would finally die. I would like to even go as far as assuming that Treyarch doesn't give a crap about the Olympia, because take a look at their prior actions. On Origins, the M14 is still here, but if you end up looking over on the other wall by, it's not going to be the Olympia, it's instead going to end up being the Ballista. The Olympia is nowhere to be seen on Origins. And in Black Ops 3, when they had Zombie Chronicles come out, they ended up bringing the M14 back as a mystery box gun, and you could end up getting the M14 once again. But you still could not get the Olympia. And the funny thing is, the Olympia already was within the game. It was a multiplayer gun, and they just chose not to bring it over like how they did with the M14. I believe that Zombies is better in co-op than it is in solo. I still do like both, but I prefer it in co-op. Now, I know that a lot of people say, okay, well, if you're liking it for co-op, that's because you have friends. Not necessarily. I've said it before in a prior Hot Takes that I do wish that public matches were safe to play again, because you can't with all the hackers. And I would love to end up playing and making new friends. That's how I actually met my old friends, was playing on Xbox and talking in public lobbies. but the experience is just in general more fun when you're playing with other people. When a COD Zombies game or a COD Zombies map is only centered around one type of playstyle, either solo or co-op, that map is going to end up only being niche. It cannot thrive the best it could, because, for example, if you have a cooperative-based map and you can't play it on solo because there's too many fetch quests, or things like the Easter egg can only be done if you have a full lobby, that's not fun. And it's the same way, vice versa. I don't like it when a zombies map can only play in a solo-based environment. I love the idea of playing with my buddies, but if, for example, the map only has one good training spot, or one good camping spot, or one of either for that matter, and then the rest of the map is kind of like a situation where it's like, okay, well, good luck, best to you, because it's cramped. There's going to be zombies that will get you from random locations. They might grab you from the ground. They might come out of a window. They might grab you around the corner. There's only one good wonder weapon, and it's only end up being in the map for one player. So if you want to end up killing anything, you would have to either double pack-a-punch your guns and use the elemental upgrades on them, or you're going to have to end up using traps. That's not fun when one guy gets the one-shot wonder weapon to round infinity, and then everybody else has to use the basic guns out of the mystery box. That's bad game design. A couple maps I can think of immediately that have this problem that botch playing in co-op is 5, Bus Depot, and Farm in Black Ops 2, the survival maps, and then things like Voyage of Despair in Black Ops 4. All of those maps suck so badly in a co-op environment because they're cramped and you struggle to fight for whatever scraps of weapons you can get out of the box or off the wall or through Easter eggs. This is a thing with more rather game balance and gameplay loops more than anything, because I know some people are going to have a hot take and say, oh, well, I'm going to argue for the opposing side. And if you do, that's 100% fine, more power to you. But I would just much rather have it where it's like, hey, if I want to hang out with my friends, I can invite them onto the game and not have to drop the game. Because if I can do both, that works out for everybody. So I've said this before in a prior video of mine, and I'm going to say it again here off of the hopes that eventually, with enough of asking for it, that Treyarch will put it in the game in some form of capacity. Which is going to be is that I hope that the next Treyarch game has some sort of element of fear factor again, because I feel like COD Zombies is at its best when it's at least a little bit creepy. The very last map that I can recall where Treyarch at least attempted to make their game feel creepy was with Zetsubou no Shima from Black Ops 3, but that was not nearly as scary as some of their older titles, especially from World at War or Black Ops 1. Hell, even Black Ops 2 had more scary of maps and elements in things like Transit and Mob of the Dead than they ended up having with Zetsubou. I feel like the reason why the older games were more scary than the modern games is because they were based off of real-life events and conspiracy theories that gave people an eek feeling. Essentially, the entirety of World at War was based off of German facilities and German experiments during the Second World War. In Black Ops 1, they continue a little bit of this with Keener Toten, but you don't necessarily need this specific storytelling to be creepy. It doesn't have to be World War II themed. And it doesn't have to be specifically themed after the Second World War. They ended up having maps that were just as scary, with maps like 5, where you can end up going into the Pentagon and going downstairs into the basement and seeing all the creepy scientific experiments that the Americans were doing. They also had other maps like Moon, where it's not necessarily scary or creepy, but it does have a sense of uneasiness, because if you go outside and you look at the Earth from the moon and you realize you're the only one there with all the zombies, it can be a very scary feeling realizing that no one knows you're up there and you very well could die. Other maps, even into the later games, such as Mob of the Dead, were extremely creepy and scary, and still are to this day. I was at the original Mob of the Dead. I went to Alcatraz about 6 months ago, and that shit is just as scary and as lifelike in-game as it is in real life. If I still haven't sold you on it, as something as simple as the lobby music can end up meaning everything. Let's compare the Cold War theme to the World at War theme and look at the differences. It's a pretty neat theme, I really like it, it's really cool, but it's not even remotely scary. Now let's look at World at War. I am a 24-year-old man, and if I heard that at 3 a.m. in the morning, all of a sudden, I would think that Satan is coming to snatch my ass. It is such an important thing to end up having for your zombies game. You need to have some aspect of it be scary. And finally, and this is once again also mentioned in a prior video, is can we please get achievements to be another main focal point of COD Zombies again. I want to show the difference between the old games and the new games. This is the Black Ops 2 Steam achievements, just for an example. In Zombies alone, for Black Ops 2, there is 50 different achievements you can get throughout every single one of the Zombies maps. This is something that is really good for the game. Now let's take a look at Cold War. Now, even though the Cold War launcher is going to be just one launcher and it's mixed in with all the other achievements, let's just take a look. So this is going to be every one of the achievements throughout the entirety of Cold War. And when you look at them, you will notice that a good majority of them are for either campaign or the multiplayer. There's only just a few achievements for Die Maschine, the launch map of Cold War, and that's it. I am an achievement hunter. I know plenty of other people are achievement hunters. And your game doesn't necessarily need to have achievements to be successful, but god damn it helps. It is such a massive incentive for players if there's achievements. For the last couple of years, there hasn't even been an achievement for doing the Easter eggs, which is just a damn shame. Sure, you might get a calling card or an emblem, and those are cool. I do think that is a step in the right direction. Those should still stay, but that shouldn't be the only thing. But yeah, guys, that is going to be my hot takes about the Call of Duty Zombies series, and I do truly hope you guys ended up enjoying it. If you did, please consider dropping a like, comment, subscribe, follow, and all that beautiful stuff. And once again, if you guys have a hot take of your guys' own that you would like to share in the comment section down below, please do so. I'm really curious what some of your guys' hot takes are. And if you guys have also enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. I think you guys will like all the content that I have here on the channel. And if you guys want to see more stuff like this, just feel free to let me know. But with all that being said, guys, I do truly hope you end up enjoying seeing another YouTube video from the most unique YouTubers we're ever going to see. Thanks for watching, guys. I love all of you, and peace out.
Hey, meme lords, Jesus here, and you better have enjoyed that video there by the eternal god Daddy Ninja. You should probably subscribe too, or the mighty Moab will come for your balls. If you enjoyed the video, you might like it too, and give me the memes. Flash, bang, boom!